With the Ottawa Senators taking the next step toward getting a new arena, we're going to talk about what makes a good arena experience and which teams around the league have the best experiences. All that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the Friday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Gil Martin from Locked On Islanders. I'm here every Friday with Rachel Donner of Locked On Flyers. How are we doing today, Rachel?
We're doing real good. I love this topic we're talking about today. I mean, partially because, covering the Philadelphia Flyers, we just went through a very tumultuous new arena deal process that may or may not have involved some sort of blackmail-like activity in the city. So, I just find it really interesting to talk about what makes a good arena and why do you need a new one like Ottawa did, right?
Yeah. I think Ottawa had some pretty good reasons for wanting a new arena more than anything else. And look, they're still in the early stages, right? They're buying land right now for the possible use of an arena. So I would say that means the arena is still but several years away from actually opening.
Right. And I think that obviously location was a huge part of that, right? With the existing arena being out of town, there's only one road to get there. It just makes it very, very difficult. It's not really accessible to make it easy to take a train out there, all of that stuff. So I think, that has been kind of the bane of the Senators fans' existence as far as the arena goes for these many years. So it's really good, that they're getting this opportunity. And I just think, you look at some of the other more recent arena deals as well. Calgary is getting a new arena in 2027. It'll be Scotia Place, replacing the Saddle Dome. And we know the Saddle Dome has been kind of a mixed bag of, it needing repairs. And then there was the damage that the building took, which they fixed, but it's still not great. And it's just one of those other buildings, much like Ottawa, that had been long overdue.
Yeah, I mean, Calgary, that building has been there, about 2 years after the Flames moved from Atlanta.
Right.
They played in the Stampede before that, right? I mean, it was, which was a very small rink, if I recall correctly. But yeah, I mean, there are some arenas where it is time. And arenas seem to have a shelf life of 25 to 30 years, it appears.
It does. I mean, there are exceptions to that rule for sure, but there are different decisions that get made in terms of, do we just build a whole brand new arena or do we renovate at this point? So you look at the Honda Center in Anaheim, they're doing the renovation model, and they're supposedly going to improve the driving and parking experience there for fans, which is again long overdue. It's a really weird spot. I've been there several times, but getting in and out has always been kind of a mess. But it's also just kind of old and boring, to be honest. Just not a fun experience per se going there in particular. But they are going the renovation route. They're also supposedly going to be done in 2027. We'll see there. And, a team like the Sharks, as well, they've been in their arena, I believe, since the beginning of the team.
I think they played 1 year at the Palace.
Right. Oh, right. They did. But pretty much since the beginning.
Right.
And they just did a lease renewal. So I assume there's going to be some renovations involved there as well, just to, freshen it up, because again, that shelf life you talked about, right?
Yeah, and part of it is always also competition, because let's face it, the owners are in this to make money. And if a new arena comes with more luxury boxes and more ways to make more money, whatever those ways may be, the other owners feel like they have to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think there's part of that, especially I can speak to the Philadelphia situation. They literally had just put hundreds of millions of dollars into those specific kinds of renovations. So upgrading the suites, making the fan experience better accessibility, like all of these things. They replaced the seats. They did so much work to what is now Xfinity Mobile Arena, that they literally just flipped the switch on the renaming this week. It had been called the Wells Fargo Center as of late for these many years. They just put all this money into it, and now they're going to build a brand new arena anyway in 5 years. And that had more to do with the Sixers and the basketball side of and the Flyers. But the Flyers were obviously part of those negotiations, and Comcast and all of that. But it's just interesting to me, like the choice to renovate versus build a new arena, and and what goes into that, and why they're doing it. And you looking at an arena like Madison Square Garden, which obviously has been around for forever, and they renovated because it's Manhattan, and there were some potential other real estate options in the city, but those did not come to pass. And like, where else are you going to put a huge arena? You can't. So you have to renovate almost, right?
You almost do. And then the other fact is, because Madison Square Garden is located right above Penn Station, it makes it so convenient for people who are coming in and out of the city to reach Madison Square Garden, because you can get there by Amtrak, you can get there by Long Island Railroad, you can get there by bus. And that location is just so perfect for the arena, and the expense of building a new arena in Manhattan would be astronomical.
Right. I do also think it's interesting what other like markets that potentially, could be looking to have new arenas that just aren't right now. I would say the Blues would be near the top of the list for me there. That arena, the Enterprise Center, has been around since the 90s there. And, we haven't heard, as far as I know, any talk about getting a new arena for the Blues, at least in any serious way in the conversation. I think that, you look at something like the United Center in Chicago, again, been around since the mid 90s, but there's like more to it there. Like, I just don't see them moving to a different location, because it's such an iconic element in Chicago, right?
Yeah, it is. And you know what? We're at the point now where we had that big mid 90s new arena boom, and all of those arenas are starting to age right now, and decisions have to be made about the future of these arenas and of where these teams are going to play.
Right. And I think, the Florida teams are part of that conversation. And as we know, the Florida Panthers won 2 cups in a row, but that arena in Sunrise is not great. It's not great.
I haven't been there. I can't say, what makes it not great.
It's just like, it's in Sunrise, to be honest. There's like not much around it that makes it interesting. It's just like you're in a parking lot, you go in the arena, you watch a game, you leave. Like, there's nothing to it that makes it a special experience per se. The concourse is average. The food is typical stadium food. It's just not an arena. It's not a destination. And I think for a team that just won 2 cups in a row, to have a building that's not a destination, it's kind of a bummer in a lot of ways.
It is. Well, we're going to break down what makes a good NHL arena, what makes a good experience. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more coming up next.
We have all been there. You log on early, you're waiting in that queue for those concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for the show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting those concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop the closer it gets to showtime. You can save up to 60% off with their killer last minute deals. And if you wonder what your view is going to look like from those seats before you buy, the app shows you a panoramic seat view, so there are no surprises. And if you're worried about what happens if plans change, the Gametime guarantee has your back with cancellation protection and more. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right, so we started to get into this territory at the end of the last segment, but what makes a good NHL arena experience?
So I have been to 26 of the current NHL arenas, and I feel like that gives me enough of a credential here to talk about it. I've been to a lot of these arenas. Obviously, well, not obviously, but I have not been to Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle. I have not been to the arena in Winnipeg. I have been to the Delta Center many, many times in Utah, but never to a Utah Mammoth hockey game there,
right?
Because I haven't been back. But I saw Olympic hockey there, so I have seen hockey in that building at some point. But there's I actually have never been to the Canadian Tire Center in Ottawa, so that is like one of the few arenas that I have not been to. But I've been to most of them, to be honest, and I've been to the multiple cities now. And I think number one on my list for a good arena is location and accessibility. It's got to be like either downtown or easily accessible by transit, because I want to be able to have a beer. I don't want to have to drive to the game. And to me, if it's not on public transit, like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I hear you. And in many cases, I think that is true. It's definitely advantageous to have accessibility with public transit, but it has to be accessible to the fan base. And, that, for example, for me, when the Islanders were playing in Brooklyn, the accessibility wasn't easy for a lot of fans coming from Long Island. Not only did we have to take the train, but we had to transfer, and transferring late at night, the trains ran 1 hour. It literally, when I was coming back from covering a game at Barclays Center, took me longer to get back from the game than it did to watch the game. And that's a very big change from what it used to be when the Islanders were at the Nassau Coliseum.
Yeah, I still ultimately think it was better to be in an arena that was on better public transit overall, but there are so many other problems with Barclays Center related to hockey that it probably outweighed that. But that was the one thing that Barclays Center had going for it, was accessibility, in my opinion. Now, accessibility to different people, sure, but accessibility nonetheless. But I think the number one thing, as far as inside the arena, once you get there for hockey, is sight lines.
Totally.
And that is what the biggest ding on the Barclays Center was for hockey. It was atrocious. It was very clearly a building that was built with basketball in mind, and hockey was an afterthought or a secondary thing that came later. And so I think that when you go and you're building an arena or you're making those renovations, sightlines for hockey have to be a top priority. And I know they're multi-purpose arenas. Basketball is often there. Concerts are very much there. And that's an acoustical issue that they have to balance out between the sporting events acoustics and the concert acoustics, which don't often mesh very well. But the sightlines got to be top of mind when you're deciding how many seats, how to plan them, the rake of the seats in terms of seeing over people in front of you, where the stanchions are, especially in the glass,
the ice, all of these things. And can you see the entire ice surface from your seat? I remember Madison Square Garden before they made the renovations. When the puck
not great.
Yeah, you couldn't identify the players if they were along the boards, in the near boards, because you just couldn't see very well what they were doing. Barclays Center, as you mentioned, was terrible with regard to sight lines because it wasn't built for hockey. Whereas the old Nassau Coliseum, which was not modern, not made with a lot of amenities, but the sight lines were among the best anywhere in the league. No matter where you sat, you felt close to the action. The building was, and I'll add another factor. The atmosphere, like the noise in the building, having the building be loud, that electricity when the fans are making a lot of noise and they're into it, that adds to the atmosphere. To me, a playoff game, for example, and not a Rangers guy here, but when you can't even hear the national anthem before the game because the fans are just so into it and anticipating the moment, that adds something to the experience.
It does. I think that for me, two of the arenas that I have loved going to the most, even though I'm not a fan of the team, is in Nashville at Bridgestone Arena. Like, they have done a great job. And because it's Nashville and they're a music city, they did such a good job with the acoustics in that building that you have the loudness of that fan experience and the crowd getting into it, but they can also do concerts there, right?
Yes.
So they're one of the best arenas in the country for that. I would also say Vegas, like in terms of having the acoustics work to the team's advantage, keeping it loud for the fans. Now, I would say the rake on the seats there, I don't love in the upper bowl. There's some dings to that building, but the way that it is set up for the fan experience and the sound of a hockey game and being able to even like hear the scrape of the skate on the ice. Like I want to be able to hear that, right?
It makes you feel like you're at the game. And yeah, I do love hearing that scrape of the skates on the ice. I like hearing the players talk to each other or hearing, it adds to the feeling of being at the event as opposed to watching it on television. And let's face it, television has never done justice to hockey.
No, and that's why like the in-game experience is so important in terms of building fans. Like if it's their first time at the arena and understanding what's happening, and that's why the sight lines, the sound is important. You want to be able to hear the PA announcer, but also hear the noise of the crowd at the same time. You want to hear the officials make that penalty announcement there, and the balance between the music and the crowd noise and the PA and all of that has to be just right. And I think the building itself has a lot to do with that.
It does. And I'll even add, the selection of music that they play during breaks creates some of that atmosphere. And it's not easy to please all the people all the time.
Sure. But I also think, something we've talked about is the amenities as well, that in terms of how is it geared to your point, you're saying the owners want to make more money, so they put in more luxury suites and more high-end VIP experiences, but like what's the regular fan experience like? To me, that tells you more about an arena, if it's good or bad, than anything having to do with anything VIP or suites. I want to know, you walk in the door, you can only get food in the concourse. You have to go to a regular person restroom or washroom, depending on what you're calling it. You have a plastic seat that may or may not have a cup holder even, although cup holders are great. Like, I want to know what the regular experience is like. That's how I judge an arena, not by any of the bells and whistles. The bells and whistles are cool, but I want to see what the regular fan experience
the regular fan to me is it's the foundation of what you're doing. And, ultimately to me, the game experience, the amenities, they're nice, but they're a bonus. To me, like, if you give me the fanciest food options, and a cup holder and all of that, if I can't see the ice or if I can't enjoy the game itself, that's why I'm there. So to me, and I may be the exception because there are a lot of casual fans who really like having fancy food, gourmet food options and non-traditional food options and all kinds of other amenities. I want to just enjoy the game once I'm there, and that's primary for me.
Yeah, I would say one of the arenas that I've been to that had been doing, I haven't been there in a few years now, so maybe things have changed, but the arena formerly known as the Staples Center in LA it's huge, right? For an indoor stadium like that, it's huge. It feels huge. There's multiple layers of suites in there because it's LA, right? But yet going and sitting in a regular seat, I've sat in the lower bowl. I've sat in the very last row of the upper bowl in that building. And I felt like I had a really good fan experience. And, I'm like, Kings, who cares to me? But like, ultimately, I have always had a good time in that building every single time I've been there. And it's in downtown LA. There's stuff going on around it. And I just feel like they have the right balance of like how to do arena well.
Yeah, they have done a good job. I have not been there, but everyone I know who has been has mostly said very positive things. So
yeah,
it seems like they have gotten things right. Well, how important is atmosphere versus success on the ice? We'll wrap up this topic here about NHL arenas. We'll have that and more coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So, will Patrick Mahomes come back and win another MVP? Or do you think this is the year that the Buffalo Bills finally win a Super Bowl? Can the Eagles repeat? Hey, you could even parlay your dark horse winners. So visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your future bets now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. How much does a team's success on the ice contribute to the arena experience?
I mean, I think in some ways it does, and in some ways it doesn't, right? Because we talked about Florida, right? I do not enjoy going to games there. I don't. And I think for many reasons. I think number one, now with them being much better recently and winning a cup, they have their own built-in fan base, but with Florida being also a tourist destination, and the snowbird situation, you have a lot of Rangers fans down there. You have a lot of Canadian fans down there. And so the crowds tend to be very mixed in terms of local fans for the Panthers versus the visiting fan. It's been the ding on their arena experience for years and years and years now. And again, it's changed a little bit because of the success of the team, but overall it's just like a plain arena. There's nothing distinctive about it. There's nothing special about it. It's just a place to go and watch hockey. But who cares? They just won 2 cups and they put banners up and made it prettier, right? I mean, ultimately, is that it?
I think it's a big part of it because you go to the place and you associate those memories. I was here and I saw that banner go up, or I saw the team play, 5 games the year they won the cup. And that was a magical experience for me. I took my kids, I went with my, best friend or whoever, and we shared that experience in this place. So you associate that place with that positive memory. I mean, I'll use the Nassau Coliseum again as an example. It was kind of outdated when it was built.
It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad, Gil.
It was
fun.
It was a dump, but it was our dump.
Yeah,
The fact that, you saw 4 straight Stanley Cup winning teams there and had more than a decade of dominance. you associated good things with being in that arena.
Oh my God, Joe Louis Arena, I would say, is Exhibit A of this
I've been
conversation.
There.
I was there multiple times and in Detroit, and it was awful. It was an awful place with like just concrete brick walls that were painted red and white to make it somewhat functional or like, reasonable to even walk in the door. But it was the Detroit Red Wings with all of that history and, Gordie Howe and like the legend, everything in that building was steeped in history and tradition. And while Little Caesars is a much, much better experience from a practical perspective, like there's so much to be said for Joe Louis Arena, despite the fact that it was terrible and the worst lighting I have ever experienced when it comes to like, it was just dark. The corners were dark.
Yeah.
You couldn't even see it. So like, like what does it matter in the end? And why are these, billionaires paying all this money to build these bells and whistles when really does it matter if the team is good and you're having a shared experience?
I think, well, first of all, there's no guarantee that the team will be good. So let's start with that as an issue.
Sure.
There's only, one team out of 32 that's going to win a championship in any given year. Mm-hmm. But I think the other thing is this. You make your money from the casual fan because the diehards are going to come back. Maybe they'll come back a little bit less.
If it's not affordable, are they?
If it's not affordable, they'll come less.
Yeah.
They'll come less often, but, so instead of going to 5 games a year, they'll go to 2, but they'll still go. But when you get the bandwagon fans, when you get the casual fans going multiple times a year, that's when the ticket becomes a hot ticket.
Yeah. It is really interesting because, I think in Pittsburgh, let's say, you look at the old Igloo, man. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if, again, we're looking at the past with rose-colored glasses here, but that was a weird arena. That was just a weird arena, but it was cool, right?
Yeah, and
great sight lines, right? And, the arena now, like PPG Paints Arena, okay, it's fine. It's just very cookie cutter. It's nothing special.
See, and that's the thing. And I'll be honest with you. There's something I miss about old arenas, and you're going to think that I'm nuts. The fact that there were old arenas that had different dimensions added something personality-wise, that Buffalo and Boston and Chicago had arenas that they actually built the team to play in those smaller arenas, and the style of play that they had was like adjusted to that. It added personality to those arenas. Yeah, Boston Garden smelled like stale beer and there were rats in it. But again, you mentioned the history and the fact that it had, like, you went into Boston Garden, you knew that your team was in for a very different experience than any cookie cutter arena that you could play in.
Well, and the Spectrum in Philadelphia was very similar. It just felt like a really tight, closed in, loud experience, but man, those bathroom lines were ridiculous. The concourse, like, it was just bad. That place was crumbling, but it was our place, and the teams were great. That's the thing. The teams were great, and does it matter? So, and I think that we're looking at arena deals now, and all of this to kind of circle it back to the beginning of the conversation. Is it to please the greater fan base? Is it to please the VIP, luxury suite part of the audience? Is it to blackmail the city so they don't relocate?
Yeah.
I mean, build us an arena or help support the infrastructure to build us an arena so we don't go to Houston. I mean, there's all of those factors that make the concept of getting a new arena in a lot of cases tarnished, which is why I kind of like the Calgary new arena, because I think there's more feel good about that. There's still some of the drama and still some of that controversy.
It's business.
It's always business, but I feel like that's more of a feel good new arena than any of these other ones.
Yeah, and I am looking forward to seeing when it opens. So should be
and
Should
if they'll be any good when it does.
That's right. Little details. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today. I know, Rachel, you'll be back with Erica L. Ayala for the Women's Hockey Spotlight tomorrow. I'll be back on Monday interviewing 3 of our local hosts with the biggest stories from around the league. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe, and thanks so much for watching and listening to the Locked On NHL podcast.